not just BIPOC populations, but people in general.
Right.
We all need to start dealing with our stuff
Yes.
before we go out and try to help somebody else.
Hello, everyone. This is Ayan Watson, the host of Sweet Taboos.
And I'm Tiffany Leo, your co-host. How you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing well as possible.
Yes, we have a very incredible guest today. She goes by the name of Alisa Bell. She is also my life coach, along with the executive director and founder of James Inc., which is a local nonprofit here in Tulsa. Hi, Miss Bell.
Hello, 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 hello. I'm so excited to be here.
Hi, Miss
Thank you for
Bell.
coming on, putting us on your schedule. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, she's a busy bee.
Yeah. How are you today?
I'm doing well. And, I would always make time for you.
Thank you. So, for those who are unaware, not today, but this month in July is National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. So that goes into some uncomfortable conversations and things that people don't really want to acknowledge, that mental health is serious and that it affects us in many different ways. But before we get there, I want you to tell us your story or whatever you want to share, and then we can pick from that and get into some taboo topics.
Well, my story is the same every day. I was a teen mom. I had my first baby at 15, second at 18, went to college at 23. Knew at that point that I was going to work with adolescent parents and have since that time just been working to give my program life. I never expected that it would be named after my son. But after he was murdered in 1998, it became the obvious name for the program. And it's just about mothers excelling in school, James. So every day I get the opportunity to wake up and to work to give James life.
That's awesome.
I want to make a very big note on just James itself. I've been with James for almost 2 years now, or I joined in January of 2023, so it's been a minute. And as I've been with the program, I've come to understand that what you had to go through with losing James has affected my success. Because if that never happened, if you hadn't endured that, my life wouldn't be where it is. So I'm just incredibly grateful for you and James's life, because it's truly changed mine.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I had James when I was 18. He changed my life. It's really funny because I had an encounter about 3 weeks ago. I walked into a meeting and I met this gentleman who works in the mayor's office, and he and I were talking, and he asked me about the program. And when I told him that it was named after my son who was murdered in 1998 and that my son's name was James King, this young man's face just changed completely. And he said, I remember that day. He was in my class. I know James very well.
He knew him?
He knew him.
Wow.
He said, and I had no idea you were his mom, but he said anyone that knew James knew the incredible person he was. He was charismatic. He was athletic. Everybody loved James. And to the extent that there were small kids. James was 14 at the time, but there were small kids who were 5, 6, and 7, and they lived across the street from us, and they would come across the street and play with James every day. I mean, he just had that type of personality, and so this man, this adult man, was visibly shaken during our conversation and talked about
Wow.
It's so powerful. I
that day
promise.
and that experience. And, he was just blown almost to the point that he had a difficult time during the meeting because neither one of us expected that. And
Right.
I had no idea. And he talked about they would have been 8th graders. They both would have been 8th graders. And he just kept looking at me and talking about how that impacted his life. But that's just one story. To still today, kids come up to me, Miss Bell, Miss Bell. I remember James, or when people put posts on the anniversary of his death, or I say something on his birthday. All of his friends and people still talk about James, and or they'll walk up and say, Miss Bell, I got this tattoo with James's name on it or
Wow.
Wow.
something, even 27 years ago. So he just was a fantastic kid, and he changed my life.
That's incredible. I know that that moment just it shook you to the core, especially somebody that personally knew him, and it seemed like the trauma from that day got ignited within him as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And all of these years, I still think about those kids that were his friends, and how they're doing. I've had the pleasure of being very close because I've always, when my kids were in school, I was at the school. I knew their parents. I knew who they were hanging out with. We were all friends, and so I've watched several of his friends experience hardships. I know at least two or three of them that are now deceased. I've watched them be involved in the penitentiary system, and I often wonder how deeply that impacted those kids, and if there was more that I could have done.
That's so unfortunate. But back to my initial point, I just wanted to express gratitude that I understand how big the price was. I do. So, because it is National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, we want to get your point of view on what has your mental health experience been like as a minority?
It's really funny you say that. James is not the only child that I've buried. I also buried my older daughter due to a stroke 11 years ago. And so we finished raising my grandson. And when James died, I was of the mindset that we didn't need mental health. And, you go to God, you talk to your friends about it, but we just
But
didn't.
sometimes not even that. You
Yeah.
don't go to
You
anybody. You
don't go
deal
to
with
you
it.
don't go to anyone. Now, I will say at the time my oldest daughter, she did go into therapy for not an extensive amount of time, but she did kind of go into therapy at that time, but I never did. Now, when she died, I ran to therapy. And I have been with my therapist and had the same therapist for about 11 years. In
Wow.
the first 2 years, the first year, I was there two, maybe three times a week for a year straight.
Okay.
And then the next year, it kind of tapered off, twice a week. Then twice a week turned into twice a month. And so now I go as needed. But I definitely can tell when, oh,
It's time.
it's time.
What about you, Miss Tiffany? What has your mental health experience been like as a minority? And if you guys don't know what minority means, it means anything outside of what the world uplifts is just like one standard. I think the only thing I can think of to describe what's not the minority is someone with fair skin, light skin, or just the smaller and ethnic groups.
Okay. Yeah. I would say for my own personal mental health, I mean, I've struggled with having issues throughout my life. I think it was around when you were, I think about 1 or 2 years old. And I think that was the first time I had an anxiety attack. And I probably should have went to therapy after my mother passed, because it really took a toll on me. I didn't know. And I think in our community we're kind of like take everything to God, and just leave it there. But it comes to a point to where you have to find an avenue to express, what you're going through,
Yeah.
and trying to express those feelings and talk about them, get them out. And that was the start of it. But I would say for years, I didn't go and see a specialist at all. I was just coping, just coping with life. And I lost both of my parents in my 20s, and that took a toll on me. I would say the first death I experienced, though, was my oldest brother. And that scared me. It put me in this mind frame of I wasn't going to live past like 33 when he passed. And so just going to my parents and, trying to express, how I was feeling, didn't know how to. But as life has gone on, I've gotten older, I find it more necessary to find an avenue, someone to talk to besides um, just talking to yourself or just giving yourself that pep talk. Because sometimes you need to facilitate those things or find different ways to express what you're feeling. But for me, it has been difficult. But now I see a therapist on a regular basis now. Um, I think maybe twice a month, just to talk. But growing up, it was something that we really didn't hear about going to see a specialist. So, what about yourself? What do you think about mental health?
I think I tend to speak about mental health from my generation. Uh, Generation Z, the Zoomers, we're more accepting of the fact that we might need help, and the fact that therapy or whatever your way may be of assessing your feelings or healing, we accept that more than other generations. And I feel that is very important. Holistic health, I think, your physical health, mental health, which is so big, and it all starts in your head too, because we love to tell ourselves these stories, and some of it may be true, some of it's not, but at the end of the day, we are our biggest enemy. So learning how to balance your mental health, especially with the large intake of social media. And I'll speak for myself. And we mentioned this during the effects of social media. If y'all haven't seen that, go watch that. The effects of social media. And I did bring up just the amount of insecurity that I was soaking in from social media, seeing everybody's life or what they look like and the beauty standard. Oh my God. So that's affected my mental health. Probably on a scale of 1 to 10, a good 7.
Okay.
We've grown up looking at, social media and things like that. I've also suffered from postpartum depression. I had my son almost 3 years ago, and there's still waves that come up, in life, because life be lifing. But I have also invested in therapy twice, and I do plan to see my therapist this month. So it's just about assessing what your resources are, getting yourself the help you need, whether that's physical, mental, emotional. So that's been my experience as minority in mental health. We all know that if you get too deep about your pain, we're like, no, we don't want to talk about it. But just like deaths and like grief, even, you don't just grieve a person, you could grieve a situation. And I think therapists are really, really good about getting to the root, depending on your therapist. Because I've heard this quote before: therapy is like trying on a pair of pants. The first one's not going to be your best one, the third one might not. But you keep going and you find the person that's going to help you get to the space that you want to get to. So, and that's a call to action to everybody listening and watching. What can you do to better yourself? It might not be therapy, but what can you do to continue to better yourself?
If I can go back up, Mama, because I am tail end of Boomer, beginning of Gen X.
Okay.
So for my generation, it was very much so that was like talking out of your house. So we learned very clearly in that you don't talk out of your house. And so that was not something that therapy would not even be mentioned or an option. And my son died in 98. And when he died, it wasn't strongly suggested as someone would, that would be the first thing that they say now to someone who's lost a child. That would be the very first thing.
Right.
But during that time, that wouldn't have even come up as an option. So it wasn't that I didn't go, but it was also that it wasn't really pushed either, you know. So, but as I think back on it now, I think about most times the mother, everyone takes care of the mother. I had so much support, so many friends now. Some of them are long term friends. I still have people on my job 27 years later that send me a card thinking of you on the anniversary and have done so
That's
ever
beautiful.
since. But your close friends and your close family, the ones who you would think would be the most supportive, they are generally, or my experience has been, they have generally been
At least.
supportive, but for a very short time because nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to approach you. Nobody wants to make you feel bad or bring it up or say that person's name, which is really the opposite of what should happen because you, as a parent, generally want to talk about it, but then you have a hesitance to talk about it because you don't want to make everybody else feel badly. You don't you have this persona of being strong, and so you really don't talk about it. And I say that to say most of the time the moms get a greater level of support, and I often wonder what happens with the siblings
Yeah.
because so that resonated with me that you didn't know how to have that conversation not only with your mom, but there would not have been a friend group or anyone
No.
to really have that conversation with. So as I think about my community and all the children that we've lost, I'm often concerned about all of the siblings that have suffered in silence.
Yeah.
That's very big because
Yeah.
everybody has a different experience.
Yeah, they do. I mean, and that was just personally my experience, and I carried that weight for years, just not really talking about it. And as I've grown older, I think by the time I got to my 30s, and that number was creeping up when he passed, and I was just, nervous than ever that, it was my time, but I had been carrying that trauma from that moment until that time. And then when I made it to his age and I went past it, I was like, okay, God, you had a different plan for me. But I think it is a conversation that needs to be had. But I'm glad that we're in that day and time in that space to where we can be more open. But also, as a young was stating, we seem to get more outcries on the web now than we have in person. And I think that should be alarming when, we have to go to the web and other avenues, to have authentic conversations or cry out for help.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a hard topic to talk about or hard conversations, but they need to be had.
It's really funny that you say that because it puts me in the in the mindset of a conversation I had in the last month, and everyone says that young people don't really want to talk. That's why social media is so big, and TikTok, they want it fast and they want you to text, but they don't want you to call and all of those things.
That is true for
And
some.
and that is true for some, but I really push back on the notion of that because like I've been working with young parents for a long, long time. And my young parents who are really, really focused on being good parents and taking care of their business, they really don't engage in social media. And they may not be actively engaged in all of our programs, but they are waiting for that once a month phone call that they're going to get where we can just have some real conversation. And it's not, it could be about anything, but it's that real engagement, that real chit chat that we used to have with each other, that was common. So I think we have to be careful in saying that young people don't want to engage in conversations. I think we have to
Create the space.
create the space to have those conversations
Yeah,
without judgment.
that. I
Yeah,
think that's
just that.
everybody. You want to be able to let go of things or just have a conversation about what's bothering you, what has bothered you. And we all share that as a human race. You fear being, ignored or just not heard. So creating the space is definitely important. And everybody's experience is so different, and that's why I really emphasize on assessing your needs, because we are not able to show up as who we want to be, but there's a mental block there, and there's some of
Mm,
the classes or curriculum at James that we've gotten about these mental blocks that are, they're not physically there, but they're there enough to affect our daily lives and everything that we have to take up for. And that leads me to my next question to you, Ms. Bell. What are some other topics that you feel more people should talk about? Because we could very much get into the effects of social media from your standpoint. It's definitely just getting outrageous. But we've already chatted on that a little bit. So we need something more
Some topics that we need to talk about with young people or topics in general.
in general. And you can get specific to young people because they are the
yeah.
next generation. We are here.
I think one of the things, and I'm going to stick to young parents, that I find them that we need to talk about is the lack of, trying to be delicate in putting this, but the lack of accurate information, referrals, and act in advocacy that young people get. And what I mean by that is you can walk into any environment, whether it be the school system, DHS, or any other system, as a young person, and you're going to not get accurate information or
Mm,
maybe even be discounted. However, that same young person will come to me and I can make that same phone call and get a very different
outcome.
outcome. And so, is it my maturity?
Mm,
Is it that I have the courage to push back and to challenge and to make sure you answer the question in a way that's different than the courage that a young person has? Because what I've learned in dealing with young people is they're afraid to engage in some of these conversations. They want the information, but they don't know quite what the follow-up questions are.
mm-hmm.
And so when we set them up to have the follow-up questions, they're more likely to get good information. But just to go out and get a resource or solve a problem on their own when they have to use a different system is not always, they don't always get the right outcome. And so I think we have to talk about the way we serve young people, young
Yeah,
parents.
I would say that as well, because you made a good point, especially with you being able to make the same phone calls as someone else would, but you got a different outcome. And when it comes down to the younger generation, like a lot of them need a sense of direction or just knowing what to ask. But like when I grew up in school, we had different type of conversations, and like now I don't even know what school is teaching, and I don't want to
The
discredit them.
curriculum is changing rapidly.
I think it's somewhat still the same curriculum that we had, but it's just amped up. It's
I don't know if I would say it's the same curriculum. My grandson, and he's probably gonna kill me, but I use him as examples all the time, will tell me school doesn't give you the keys.
No,
and
I will
she said
pledge to that.
and she says that a lot.
Yeah.
It
They don't
gives you
prepare you for real life.
right.
We're reading stuff that I mean, not to say that you shouldn't know the history, but we're reading stuff about the pigs and the goats, and they're acting as government people. And it has nothing to do with real life. Nobody's preparing us for taxes or how to purchase a home or, just what the real avenues are after school. I mean, I don't know what the high school is preparing them for now, but we've lost a lot of surface or just foundational blocks to life, which is communication, life skills. So it's just like, what do we do? And a lot of people turn to online school or homeschooling for various reasons. But I agree with that. I feel like I was not prepared for the real world, not even from my home, but for school, because you spend so much time at school. That's where you gain your skills, your social skills, and just all these different things. And I still didn't feel prepared.
I think my generation was probably the last generation that had a somewhat strong curriculum, but I would say that we probably here in Oklahoma have at least two, if not three generations of graduates that have had a watered down
Mm.
Education,
school experience. Yeah, in
very
education.
much.
My home ec teacher is still alive. I call Miss Gray all the time. I see her on social media, and there are so many basics that she taught us
Mm.
that when I
Cast
talk,
iron skillet.
yeah, when I talk to my young parents, they have no idea what
No,
we're
they
talking
don't.
about. Well, just and it's just the basics, and it's that foundational knowledge that kids need, and we need to go back and make sure that we're setting strong foundations for our students, our kids, our employees.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't onboard people on jobs anymore, so you sit them behind a computer and you give them, tell them to go through the class, but nobody tells you the why and what happens if if you pull this string, this is going to happen. So you have people who are processing things that they have no idea what the full impact of what their work is. And then you have that, and then you have it coupled with just sloppy work.
Mm-hmm.
Mediocrity has become
The
so
norm.
Yes.
much the norm.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me what you get away with and turn in, and think that it's an acceptable level of work, and it's not. And no
That's
one,
kind of what school has trained us
yeah,
to do, though.
yeah,
You know, there's been a lack of accountability for those who are running these school systems, and that's a lot of what we're studying at James. How do we be prepared? Because you don't have a dog in the fight, but I do. So we're trying to figure out how do we make this better, because we're talking right now about how we had a poor experience. How do we make their experience better? Help them to be more successful.
and I say I don't have a dog in the fight because I don't have a kid in the school system, but your success and the success of your children has a direct correlation to my success as a community member, as a taxpayer. I mean, all of these things are intertwined,
Right.
and we have lost the fact that what I do impacts you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a key pointer though. I mean, it goes back to community and just being knowledgeable because yes, you have a son that's coming up in the up and coming school district,
Yeah, he's the next generation.
and I still have one in the school district, and just having those conversations because I was speaking with a young lady recently, and she was sharing her experience where she decided to go online and finish out her last year, but she was speaking about we don't talk much about bullying, but she was stating that some of the bullying comes from the teachers, and I was like, okay, that was heavy, but she felt some type of way about what she said, and just her experience to pull out of traditional school was affected by how she was treated by a teacher and along with students, but just having those avenues, being able to speak about their experience as well. And I love that you're giving them the opportunity to go out and advocate and learn about what's up and coming, because I know growing up well, I don't know if we had the opportunity to go and sit at board meetings and things like that, but it was just the opportunity to know what's ahead. And when I was in school, yes, we had home ec and things like that, and they taught us how to sew and cook and different things like that. And last year, when I was in Nigeria, it was a young lady. She was getting ready to graduate, and she was stating that one of her courses, or she was in home ec, And I was like, oh, y'all still have the fundamentals there,
Mhm.
and in that particular country, like they very old school and traditional. And I think that's something that we're moving so fast paced here to where we can't, well, maybe we should be teaching those things, but we're not.
Mhm.
We're just throwing the youth out there and say, hey, you got to go figure it out.
Mhm.
And the standardized testing does not help. But that also coincides with absenteeism. If you're not
Mhm.
there to get the curriculum, how can you be successful on the tests that make you sit down and take for 3 hours? And
Mhm.
just like, how do you even do that? And I
Mhm.
feel like, from my point of view, that is so intimidating, honestly, for someone who doesn't fit the mold of your average student that sits there, watch the teacher write it down, and just that whole thing that doesn't work for everyone. So personally, I wasn't be able to be successful because that didn't work for me.
I want to go back to something you said because it created a thought about a teacher bullying a student, and
That's so ridiculous.
but it goes back to our original point. For a teacher to bully a student, there's a mental health issue there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
There's a there's an unresolved trauma that
Mm.
that
Okay.
person has experienced as well. And I don't even think that we think about those things because
We don't.
yes, I have a teaching certificate. I can teach the class, I can teach the curriculum. I can teach the curriculum, but if I don't bring my whole self into the
Mm-hmm.
classroom,
That's what.
if I'm going through some issues or some unresolved trauma that I have myself or unrecognized that I'm unwilling to acknowledge and
Mm-hmm.
deal with, then I'm not effective either in the
Mm.
classroom. So
Awareness.
it's not only mental health issues, and we keep pushing children and the wellness of children and the mental health of children in the classroom, and we have these agencies that are providing these services. But what I have found
Mm-hmm.
is that in many instances, the people providing the services aren't whole and healthy themselves
Mm. Yes, yes.
or have a full awareness of their own issues and biases. And, that's why we talk about DEI and all of these terms. And I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. But as not just BIPOC populations, but people in general,
Right.
we all need to start dealing with our stuff
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
before we go out and try to help somebody else.
And that's a big part of social media. We all know it's a distraction. It can be a distraction if you're not being effective with it. But that's why a lot of people spend 11 hours on social media ignoring their own issues. And we can't force anybody into acknowledging or becoming aware. But what can we really do?
Mm-hmm.
What can we really do to help each other or create this community of no judgment? Because that's all we're really afraid of: judgment
Mm-hmm.
and fear of not being heard or accepted, and just all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's been a struggle for a long time. I mean, even myself, I have to get off of social media because it just becomes overwhelming, just it's just too much. And especially we don't even acknowledge, when we're triggered by something. And so like I'm in this season now to where I either get on social media, but I get right back off, which I know is not, a lot of people will say, oh, it's not really healthy to do that, to go in your shell. But at the same time, I'm just trying to get away from the negativity. Or the best thing to do is I need to redefine what social media is to me. If it takes me to have to spend some time and go and delete or unfollow, then I need to do that for my own mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Right, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Manage your peace. On my vision boards this year, the word focus.
Mm.
I put the
That's
word
very
focus
big.
on my vision board. And so for that reason, I have also not been as active. I may look at it once a day. I may make one comment, and I'm very selective of whose comment I'm going to make a comment on. I have a really good friend who just swam with the whales.
Oh wow.
So that's
Where? That's crazy.
we'll yeah. I think it's whale sharks.
Oh,
Oh.
Yeah, and so
dangerous.
no, because they eat the plankton and they don't. The
What?
the the thing is you have to give them their space, but they
Okay.
probably are the safest from what I'm reading
Interesting.
because it's not a bucket list item of mine. But she
Swim with the
did it.
sharks.
Yeah, she did with the whales. She did it and she posted some video of it. So
That's so
those types
cool.
of things are going to get my attention. I'm not going to feed into the negativity, as you say. So I'm scrolling, but I'm scrolling for stuff that enlightens or lifts me in some way, that builds me up, or that I'm going to learn something from.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the word focus has done for me.
Mm-hmm.
Just made me more aware of where am I really putting my attention
Attention.
and what am I
Yes.
going to put my attention on.
Yes.
And then there's some weeks where I just delete my social media in general
Entirely.
because
Yeah.
if it's on my home screen and I see it, I'm more apt to look. But if it's not there, then I don't even think about it until the last 15 minutes of the day, and I'll upload it again and look at it quickly and delete it. So yeah, and that's been a mental health, a self care
Right.
type thing. Now you do have to fight that. What am I missing? What happened today? That whole
Being in
thing,
the know.
being in the know, being a part of. You do have to get over that. But the more you remove yourself from it, the easier that has become for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to ask as we come down a little bit, what would you be doing if you weren't running James? Because you run a quite large operation. What else would you be doing with your life?
Well, I keep saying that my big age because I turned 60 this year, so I keep
It's
referring it to
incredible.
my big age.
Your big age.
And after the experience we had in Africa last year, I think I would be focused more on issues that affect the continent in ways in which I can help. Because after being there, I learned about the large population of young people, not just teens, but adolescents who were having children and whose opportunity for school and economic development was diminished. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was already diminished, but it was just obliterated once a pregnancy occurs. So I probably would be focusing on what I could do there,
Building opportunities.
building opportunities for other young
Mm.
people. What I know is that I don't want to work for anyone
Hey.
ever again. So I probably would be creating opportunities for myself to share a lot of the knowledge that I share and to also monetize how that's done. So I wouldn't be at someone's company
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't be engaged in things that frivolous, but I would be doing things to help somebody else.
That's beautiful. That's
Right. Your
over there.
testimony serves for a different life that you may never know of.
Yes. I mean, just traveling to Africa in general is a life-changing experience. And I've noticed the same thing when I've traveled there. You know, the young women there, or just say the teens, adolescents. Um, Same thing that the conversations that they end up having with their parents is, oh, you went out and made a mistake. Now you need to focus on what your mistake has brought. And they have to get out and go to work, and life is just pretty much over for them at that point. And I think it's really, really sad. The support system is not what it should be. And I mean, they're very traditional people, but also being able to take resources back that way and show them how to create resources, because a lot of time they don't believe resources even
Exist.
exist. And so that is huge what you're trying to do. And I believe you're going to accomplish it and bring more resources than they could ever believe. And also help them and show them how they need to actually get out here and do the same thing you're doing.
You know, that's so I just resonate with that because when I think back to my pregnancy, 79, 80, 82, 83, my early pregnancies, the thought process was if we can just get you out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. That's all. No one ever thought or pushed or discussed opportunity beyond high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, a big part of my work has been about that's not the end of the story.
Right.
That's just the beginning of the story. That's not the end of the story. So a lot of my work is around telling young parents, okay, so you have a baby, but what about you?
Right.
You're important too.
Right.
And
Going
if
back.
you're not developing, or if your child is the only one growing in the house, that's a problem. And if you don't develop, the child never will. And so I went to college that would have been, trying to think, 87, 88. So when I came back in 91, I have just been really focused on helping young people to say, well, what about you? Well, what about you? And it's funny because from probably 93 until probably the last 5, 6 years, I was the only one saying, no, we need to develop young parents, and everybody else was still talking about prevention. And I understand prevention and I understand abstinence, but Oklahoma has been number one in young pregnancies. And thankfully, the teen pregnancy birth rates have gone down, but we've always had this high percentage. And it just has always been baffling to me that why would we only focus on the kids when we have this whole group of parents that need to be
Yeah.
developed also. So
You
yeah,
saw what everybody else was not seeing.
I saw how I wasn't developed,
Mm-hmm.
and it was when I got to college that I realized, oh, you smart girl. Girl,
Right.
you smart. What are you talking about?
Hmm.
Because you feed into, and again, it's trauma, and you feed into that mindset that this is all that you can have, and this is what you're supposed to aspire to, and this is it, and your life is over, and it's just about
That
the
is what they
kids.
tell you.
It's just about the kids, but
It's
if
not.
you don't develop, then the kids don't have a chance.
Yeah.
That's 100% true.
I've raised two girls. Both of my girls, neither one of my girls were teen parents. Both of them have high school diplomas and college degrees.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's
Amazing work.
it's about, but it's directly attributed to the fact that I
Develop.
changed.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What is that quote? What you don't transform is transferred.
Mm-hmm.
I live by that quote. And that's a lot of things that have been planted in my life since joining James. Again, forever grateful for. And everybody close to me sees it. And they reap the benefits too.
Right.
So, we've really enjoyed you today.
Yes, Miss
But
Bell.
last but not least, what is your takeaway today for our viewers and listeners?
My takeaway is believe and invest in a young person. When you came to me, you didn't have a high school diploma.
Nope. I
You
didn't even have a path or a
you didn't have
blueprint.
you didn't have a plan.
Hmm.
And the investment in you has been small, but the reward has been great.
Mm-hmm.
And my takeaway is to just keep doing what I'm doing.
I will.
Just keep doing what I'm doing. And not only that, I can't wait to see how you develop the next generation because it's bigger than you still.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel that.
Mhm.
I feel that. It's heavy, but we got to do it. So thank you all for tuning in today. This has been Alisa Bell, the executive director and founder of James Inc., and my beloved life coach / grandma.
Yeah,
I
we
have so
appreciate you.
many so many
Yeah,
grandchildren.
you've accumulated
I
a
have
lot of
I'm
grandkids.
either grandma, a big mama, a
Big
mama,
mama.
auntie. I'm one of those.
Oh,
Hey, that
Yeah.
means you're making great impact. That
for
much.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I started out with 3 children. And it's really funny because when my son died, my youngest child had just been born. So I still
Mm.
had 2 children. And then when my daughter died, my grandson had just been born. So I still had 2 children. So even with the subtraction, I've never lost. And now with James, I have hundreds of children
Oh my
and
goodness.
hundreds of grandchildren. So it just has multiplied.
Mm-hmm. That's such a beautiful story.
Yes, y'all
Beautiful.
make sure to like, share, comment on this. Let us know what your thoughts are. We appreciate your love and support each and every time here at Sweet Taboos, where
Yes, we
we
do.
educate, advocate, and encourage. You got anything else for us, Miss Tiffany?
No, we just thank you for everything that you're doing. Y'all make sure y'all go check out her
Yeah, where can we
website.
find you? Where can we connect with you?
You can always find us at www.jamesinc.org. And, my number is 918-402-3547. Give me a call and tell me what you need.
Hey,
Amen. Thank you. We'll
Ashe.
see y'all next time. Stay
Stay
sweet.
sweet.